We build up our employees, we build up our customers. We keep our promises. When we say yes to something, we got to get it done, even if it's painful. And we think big. I've been at Britten my whole life, but working in the company for 10 years. My name's Paul Britten. I'm the Executive Vice President of Sales and Marketing here at Britten. So we're an event fabrication company. We're a manufacturer. We have about 250 makers and artists and craftsmen. We have our Scenic division that does scenic and themed environments, which is where we do a lot of our 3D printing and foam sculpting and 3D work. We have a structural division that does event structures, specifically containers and metal fabrication. Then we have a signage division that does graphics and signage displays, and then services, which is installation. One of those core values is we say yes. We always try to get to yes to our customers' needs. By saying yes, we've really expanded into, it's what's led to most of our innovation and driven the growth over the last 40 years. We were doing high-level deductives manufacturing out of foam and out of wood, but we needed that additive component to really refine in the detail around what was being asked from our customers. And decided to buy our first 3D printers.
Hi, I'm Anthony Zeitler. I'm an industrial designer here at Britten Incorporated. What drew me into large format printers like the BigRep was the ability to print things in one part. We have a fleet of printers that can piecemeal everything together, but there's limitations to that. Specifically with our lighting, we're getting asked to make 24-inch diameter globes. And with it being a clear light, it's simply impossible without restricting the design to print something like that. So a printer like the BigRep allowed me to print it in one single piece and mimic glass and really expand it into farther geometries that even glass wouldn't be able to produce.
Once we started learning more about 3D printing and the capabilities that it could bring, we augmented other elements in the shop. Specifically within our woodworking division, we use 3D printing to solve small problems that go a long way. It's really found its way into the mind of our craftsmen in the shop as a tool to do custom work. It was a lot of trying to source components online, a lot of making jigs out of wood, and it was taking our guys a long time to just think through the problem, and now 3D printing is one of those tools in their tool belt that it was a huge win when we saw them go into our engineer's office and ask them to print a component instead of going to Home Depot and looking for a certain size washer for an hour.
3D printing started as a detail aspect of our Scenic fabrication. Being able to do high detail stuff in addition to our foam and woodworking was the first use case for 3D printing, and it kind of evolved into a much broader scale. We started to realize how putting lighting behind a clear or an opaque filament could create unique lighting situations.
One of my good friends, Dan Caudill, he owns a antique shop in Northport, Michigan. He was interested in replicating different types of antique light fixtures, where I thought that 3D printing could really lend itself to replicating that type of fixture. By 3D printing the lights, we're able to create extremely custom types of light refraction, and we give architects and designers the ability to design their own lights instead of something off the shelf. And it's been a very exciting thing for them and for us when we get to have that ideation around it. Just specifically, we have a wall-mounted sconce, and sconces are all about how the light refracts back on the wall that the sconce is mounted on. And just by changing the way that we do the filament pattern, or just the way we print it, we can generate all different sorts of shadows and light against that wall.
All of these stuff coming off the BigRep does not need to get post-processed whatsoever. The only stuff for our lighting that needs to be painted or anything like that is the tops and bottoms and frames for our structures. The actual clear shades for all of our lights that come off the BigRep are good to assemble immediately off the printer. So we use a variety of materials with the BigRep. Primarily, we started with all of the BigRep materials. We utilize their PETGs as well as some of their engineering grade materials, testing for different projects. But we've also been able to use third-party materials to really dial in for specific applications, especially with our lighting for the clarity aspects that we're looking for. Integrating 3D printing into our workflow was pretty seamless. It goes along with a lot of our fabrication processes. BigRep specifically integrating into all of our manufacturing was very easy. Blade was a very simple software for me to pick up, and it really matches the profiles of any other slicing program that we use here, and really builds upon it because of all of the preloaded materials and settings that come with it. My favorite part is the fact I think I've had one issue with it since getting it, and it was a very simple fix.
Absolutely, I see 3D printing being a huge part of our growth into the future. I think we're almost up to about 50% of the sculptures that we do have some type of a 3D printed component. The step from going from having 1 or 2 printers to having a full-blown farm and large format is a pretty big step, and I'm proud that we were able to take it.
Yeah, I would say 3D printing opens doors that you don't even know are there because of the geometry limitations that other manufacturing processes have. 3D printing, because it's an additive manufacturing method, it can create things that simply aren't touchable by other processes, and being able to explore and test with something that you CAD up and be able to have it in production that same day is unlike anything else. So it's an invaluable tool.
The BigRep ONE was a very low barrier to entry for us from a knowledge perspective. It was easy to transition the type of small format printing that we were doing into this large format style. I also just really like the simplicity of the machine and the overall reliability of it, to be able to print long prints and know that it's not going to have too many errors that we have to restart. So far, the BigRep experience has been really good. They worked fast with us to get us our first machine. They came here and helped work through service and everything, and it's been great. I would definitely buy another one.